Once upon a time, there was a combo that literally broke every boss in the game. It was the combination of Liar's Handshake with its intrinsic perk cross counter and combination blow. Now Bungie has since addressed this issue, but today we're going to find out how much. Because in the current Sandbox, at least for Season 8, we have an artifact mod called Thunder Coil. Now this mod increases our arc melee damage, but is it enough to make up the nerf that Liar's Handshake in this combo received? Now for my guys that don't know what's happening here, Liar's Handshake is a Hunter exotic gauntlet that comes with the perk cross counter. Using your art melee ability or being hit by a melee attack will allow you to follow up with an extremely powerful melee counterpunch that will heal you. Extremely beneficial in both PvE and especially in PvP. You can essentially run around and one-hit melee guardians inside a crucible, and the way in which you use Liar's Handshake is you can either use it in its counter form after receiving a melee hit, or you can just self-proc cross counter by just throwing a melee, and upon doing so, cross counter will proc, thus the term cross counter. But going over the damage values inside of PvE, we're back at Greg, and we're actually going to be cycling our numbers between both Greg today and this knight on Mars. Don't know what to call the knight. I know that's his name, but I'm thinking like Kevin. So today we're actually going to be pulling numbers from both Kevin and Greg. We usually always rely on Greg, but since nightmares have been added to Greg's place, numbers can get kind of funky down there for like no reason. But this is just a way for us to self-check, and we did have some conflicting values here. But on Greg, a basic melee is 4,903 damage. With the Thunder Coil artifact added, which of course increases our art melee damage, that increases to 7,355. That is a 50% increase across the board. Now cross counter with a basic melee does 14,709 damage for a 200% increase. Again, all of these numbers in terms of percentage increases is from our base melee. Now cross counter plus Thunder Coil does 22,064 damage for a 350% increase, which is a very significant bump there in damage. But this is when we start to include things on our subclass. Combination Blow is a subclass perk found on Top Tree Arcstrider, which allows us to gain bonus melee damage on melee kills. So combine something like Combination Blow with Gambler's Dodge, you can just keep getting melee kills over and over again to get the full stacks of 3. And the beautiful thing about those stacks of 3 is the duration there. You've got like 20 seconds to go to Pound Town with this combination, and that's what made it so lethal even in the previous Sandbox. So Combination Blow times 3 with Thunder Coil does 30,124 damage. It's a 514% increase. Combination Blow times 3 plus Cross Counter plus Thunder Coil does 90,371 damage. That's over a 1,700% increase. Now 1-2 Punch plus Combination Blow times 3 plus Thunder Coil, again this is without Cross Counter, is showing here on Greg at 90,371 damage. So still a 1,700% increase, which is where we get the confliction of numbers. So between both Kevin and Greg here, Kevin was showing almost a 2,700% increase with 1-2 Combination Blow times 3 and Thunder Coil, whereas Greg was only showing a 1,700% increase, which is the equivalent increase of Combination Blow times 3, Cross Counter, and Thunder Coil. It was really odd that I had these confliction of numbers, but I'm not going to really get too hung up on it, as the final number is the one that makes the biggest difference, and that is 1-2 Punch, Combination Blow, Cross Counter, and Thunder Coil for a 3,200% increase in total damage, which is ginormous. And this was the same for both Kevin and Greg. Obviously something was happening there with the previous values, which is still a pretty big difference between 2,600% and 1,700%, but I've tested these numbers over and over again, and I'm really not sure why Greg is being so difficult. Regardless though, the final number, that 3,200%, is a good way for us to compare what it used to do when we ran these same numbers back. So in the previous Sandbox, our values here were pretty much the same. Like the only difference here is the added benefits of Thunder Coil, but the nerf that we're looking at is a difference of 3,586%, which is what it was previously, to 3,218%. So yes, it is doing less damage, but with the added benefits of something like Thunder Coil, it's able to bring our total damage percentage somewhat close to the previous damage value values in the last sandbox. Now, granted, this is only beneficial for this season. Next season may come around, and there's a good chance it won't be bringing Thunder Coil with it. It'll be some other perk, which is kind of a bummer, because without Thunder Coil, 1-2 punch plus combination blow times 3 does 25,103 damage at Kevin, which is a 1,700% increase, which is not bad, but it's much less than that 2,665% increase that it was previously doing. And 1-2 punch plus combination blow plus cross counter does 30,124 damage for a total of 2,112% increase. Now, granted, these are some very good damage values. The fact that you're able to grow your basic melee damage to these heights is amazing, but losing out on something like Thunder Coil is gonna drop us by more than 1,000%, which is insane. So for the time being, this build almost matches the damage output that it was previously doing pre-Shadowkeep, which is why we're giving this build the name ThunderShake. Huh? That's a beautiful name, okay? And I'm gonna be so sad when we gotta say goodbye to this build, because what the hell are we gonna call it now? Like, once Thunder Coil goes away, it's just gonna be normal. It's gonna be just basic and nerfed. And even though we're not hitting the damage values that we were hitting last season, we're pretty close. Like, this Primeval right here, I'm putting some damage into him. No, it's not 93% of the total damage, but damn near it. And not only that, you're hitting that damage threshold that stuns the boss still, at least currently right now with Thunder Coil. Notice I'm not taking hardly any damage because I'm constantly just stunning the boss over and over again. Now, a recommendation in this current sandbox, considering that you are doing less damage than the previous one, on your shotguns that have 1-2 punch, which is what we're combining here to boost our melee damage, you're gonna either need a shotgun that has a larger magazine by default because the overall damage phase is gonna take longer, or for those that are rocking last man standing with 1-2 punch like I am, like I really should have just thrown on a backup mag for that increase in mag size. Just a recommendation, guys. Again, obviously this is not that big of a deal if you're just trying to take down majors, which I actually brought it into the Nightfall, and this is the 950. I was just running it solo to see how it dealt with barrier enemies who are super beefy, and it was dealing with them really good. Like, as a solo player, this was the build to use. You saw Glad and many other guys solo Riven, and I know you can't do that anymore, or at least I don't think you can. But when it comes to these high level Nightfalls, I found this to be one of the best ways to deal with these barrier enemies. Now, granted, a huge reason for this is Peregrine Greaves and 1-2 punch. That combo is obviously going to be removed. So it's back to the drawing board for many of us to figure out what's the best combination when it comes to these melee builds. And even though I love Worm God Caress, Worm God only grants you like 5 seconds to really get in there and get nasty, which is super unfortunate. It's a wonderful exotic, but you get only 5 seconds to close the gap and complete your damage phase. We may be able to utilize it, but currently right now, this combo right here was one of the best I've ever used for this Nightfall. I'll probably try to use it for the 980, but if you are going to use this setup, I would highly suggest rocking Unstoppable Melee, which will allow you to stagger unshielded enemy combatants, and they're strong against unstoppable champions, as well as combining it with Ballistic Combo. But again, like we said yesterday, you could potentially double up on Unstoppable Melee here for maybe a stronger duration that you can stun those unshielded combatants. So something to consider with this loadout, guys. There's a lot of ways to really beef up the damage. The main thing is Liar's Handshake with cross counter, combination blow is definitely still a thing, and Thunder Coil to make up the nerf that this build received inside of Shadowkeep. Well, guys, that is ThunderShake in the current sandbox. You've got like, I don't know, what is it, 30 days, 40 days left of the season? You've got a good month to really enjoy this build. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.